South Africa is one of the few countries in the world where racism is openly celebrated. In fact, racism is such a natural part of everyday life that most people don't even know it exists anymore, or at least most people don't even really think about its existence. South Africa is the only country on earth where a minority is discriminated against, where affirmative action, employment equity, and other job programs are built against the minority and not for the minority. Generally speaking, in all other nations on earth, you would have something like affirmative action in order to help the minority group. Now, I'm not arguing for affirmative action for white people. In fact, I'm arguing for the removal of BEE, employment equity, and affirmative action. I'm arguing for the removal of those programs for two reasons. One, they're racist, and you should not have racist policies as part of your country. But number two, they don't actually work. So new posts over on X have started to formulate and circulate all over the place. One of them, for example, is Row Consulting, who is a consulting firm that is working with the government. And they've said, are you between the ages of 18 and 35 with NQF5 and above, living with a disability or looking for an opportunity to earn while you learn? A well-structured disability learnership is now open for Black, colored, and Indian males and females across South Africa. This opportunity. So in other words, white men need not apply. You head over to this, the Beers Group. They have the following. In order to apply, it must be 100% Black owned. Here you have the South African Weather Service. Preference will be given to people living with disabilities in line with AWSEE targets, employment equity. This is an EE position, and preference will be given to females, Africans, Indians, and coloreds. You have the exact same, for example, over here, where every single one of these, as you can see there, AA, affirmative action, EE, employment equity, is a requirement, and this is for every single one of these jobs. And these aren't even necessarily all government jobs. Some of them is just normal jobs. But these days, the corporations are so in bed with the government when it comes to this stuff that they're all effectively pushing the exact same thing. And then you have someone like this, for example, Mzwaneli Manya, MP, apparently. He's an ex-director general, an ex-cabinet spokesperson, ex-corporate executive, ex-media owner. He's ex in a lot of things, and he's an Harvard alumnus or alumni, I guess you could say. Now, he says, hence employment equity must be race-based to level the playing field. Now, of course, he's responding to this. We covered it in a previous video, in the video literally just earlier today, where you can see over the course of the last 15 years, let's go from 2010, you can see a sharp increase in Black unemployment in this country. You can see an increase in unemployment for all people across the board, right? Every single group is affected by unemployment, but Black Africans have been affected by unemployment at a far greater rate than that of any other racial group in the country. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that, right? But we'll get into those reasons in a little bit. First, let's just talk about how does government or how does jobs even get created? Because the argument here by Mzwaneli is that we should just have more employment equity because that will solve the problem. The issue, of course, is if you go over all of the jobs in South Africa, for example, I just went into the etenders.gov.za website where all government tenders are posted, and literally every single one of the jobs that you click on that they want a tender for, you will see this form where unless you are Black owned or women owned, you will not get that tender, right? So in every opportunity or every area of South African society, you have employment equity. Employment equity is everywhere, except when we look at the actual statistics, they don't seem to bear out the success of these programs. It doesn't seem like broad-based Black economic empowerment actually empowered the Blacks broadly, right? It doesn't seem like affirmative action actually empowered Black people broadly. It doesn't seem like employment equity has actually made anything equal for black people, if anything, because when you actually look at that list, you will see that black people's unemployment rose far more than any of the other races. Now, there's a good reason for that. A lot of the other races had to make their own way. For Indians and whites and coloreds, the best way to get your job is to open your own business, do your own thing, find your own way in this world, because the government sure as hell isn't going to help you out. For black people, because they think wrongly that the government is there to pick up the slack and help them out, they wait for the government to make something happen. And as a result of that, they're in this predicament. There's a bigger reason why black people's unemployment have actually rose far sharper. But for that, we have to go look at actual research. In this study, for example, by the Cato Institute, this was done already in 1984, they look at the myth of government job creation. And in this study, what they find looking at government programs that is meant to lower jobs, here's the big problem. You see, with respect to government job programs, what is important is that they are usually financed by taxation or borrowing by the federal government. In either case, resources are withdrawn from alternative private sector uses. Higher taxes mean consumers have less to spend in the private sector, and reduced consumer demand leads to less production and employment. So what they find is when the government spends more money to try and employ people, they actually just slaughter a bunch of private jobs. They don't actually make anything happen for the unemployment rate. The unemployment rate remains super high. They've basically shifted a bunch of jobs from the private sector to the government. That's it. So you basically destroy it. And this study, for example, here, what can government do to create better jobs, from the Mercatus Center, actually found the inverse of that. If you leave it for long enough, what ends up happening is that even the jobs that were shifted from the private sector to the government ends up being destroyed, right? So no matter what you do, the government ultimately ends up destroying unemployment. And another great study was from the Manhattan Institute, where they looked at the actual data. During the 1930s, New Deal lawmakers doubled federal spending, yet unemployment remained above 20% until World War II broke out and they suddenly needed everyone in the factories to make bullets. Japan responded to a 1990 recession by passing 10 stimulus spending bills over 8 years, building the largest national debt in the industrialized world, yet its economy remained stagnant. It is still stagnant to this day, despite all of the extra spending. In 2001, President Bush responded to a recession by injecting tax rebates into the economy. The economy did not respond until 2 years later, when tax rate deductions were implemented. Then you have in 2008, President Bush tried to head off the current recession with another round of tax rebates. The recession continued to worsen. Now, the most recent 787 billion rand stimulus bill was intended to keep the unemployment rate from exceeding 8%. In November, it topped 10%. Every single study that we have finds the exact same problem. Whenever the government tries to solve a problem, they end up making the problem worse. And the reason for that is the government is not a money-generating institution. It does not make value. It does not create value. The government can simply take value from one place and move that value to another place. The problem is that when the government takes a dollar from the private sector, it takes a cut of that dollar. In some very highly efficient countries, that can be as low as 50%. So for every dollar the government takes, they'll give 50% back, right? So they'll give 50 cents back to the people. For every rand, 50 cents goes back to the people. That's sort of, and that's in highly efficient governments. That's like European government that's able to do a 50-50 sort of efficiency rate. In South Africa, that efficiency rate is probably almost negative, considering the fact that our debt continues to go worse and go up. It means that for every rand the South African government takes, it's most likely spending way more than a rand just to get that rand into the public sector, because people have to be paid in government and all the rest of it. So the government's only real ability in trying to shift this is the destruction of wealth and value, not the creation thereof, because of how government is built and how government is set up and the basic limitations within government. The question that I will ask every single time to people who are supporters of this is, why do you think this continues to happen? Why do you imagine that all of these programs that you have implemented over the last 30 years that have continuously showed how it makes the lives of the very people you purport to want to better worse, why do you think that more of the same will somehow fix the problem? Because I told you guys I will tell you why black people are experiencing far worse unemployment than anyone else. The reason for that is there's only one way to create jobs and prosperity in a country, and that is growing an economy. No other mechanism exists on this planet that actually does that, right? Only growing the economy creates wealth and prosperity. But your economy has to grow much, much faster than what your population grows. What you see with black people, what you see in that spike amongst blacks and African people in South Africa is the fact that Africans are growing population-wise much, much faster than what the economy is shrinking. And so as the economy continues to shrink and as the black population continues to increase, that number will just automatically continue to go up. Everyone else is going up, but at a far slower rate. And that's because of a failing government that has failed to grow the economy, and the economy is not growing anywhere near fast enough to offset the population growth within the black communities. I'm not saying that black people should stop having children. It's good to have children. Children is good. More people in this country should be having children, right? What I'm saying is we need a government that actually stimulates growth within our economy so that we can have a prosperous nation. That's sort of the point I'm trying to make. Anyways, let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think of this, all the numbers that's coming out. I realize for some people, the economy or economic discussions is always a little bit annoying and a little bit boring, but I like doing it. So let me know in the comment section down below how you feel. As always, if you think more people should have access to rational and honest conversations, please consider hitting that like button, smashing the bell, hitting that subscribe, and leaving a comment because it does truly help. As always, big thank you to all of the patrons and the YouTube channel members for continuing to support this channel. To become a patron, hit the link in the description down below, or YouTube member, just hit the join button below this video. As always, be good to each other, be kind to each other, and I'll see all of you in the next one. A peace.